Imagine being seriously disabled, an amputee, and now being mandated by law to pay back £36,000 in disability benefits, all because somebody recorded you playing a disabled version, adapted version of cricket. Well, here we are. We have a real life case study of the government's new fear bill put into action, and this is what the press have not been reporting, so I'm reporting it here for you. And I'm going to be breaking this down bit by bit, what actually happened in this case, and why DWP have done what they've done, and what you can do to make sure you protect yourself so that this sort of thing doesn't happen to you. The recent updates of that new act, the Fear Act, is in this video here. I'm going to link it at the end of this video because you'll want to watch this first. And I've also curated a very special playlist for you. So if you didn't know too much about the government's new fraud, error and recovery bill, which gives them the right to look in your bank account, take money from your bank account, and even suspend your driving license if you don't pay them the money they say that you owe them, then this is going to be the playlist for you. You can find it at the top of my channel. Just sort along to playlists and look for the new Fear Bill playlist, and you can watch all of those videos to your heart's content. And if it's your first time here, hello, my name's Ali. I'm the founder of the Justice Journals after successfully suing the Department of Work and Pensions for unlawful harassment and failure to make reasonable adjustments for me when I used to work for them in the workplace. This is where you will get the very latest disability updates, advice about advocacy that I've used in my own case, templates, resources, even letters, and most of all, how you can start and grow a thriving business without even needing any type of benefit. So let's get into it. Meet Sha Riby, a disabled amputee from the age of 2 when he was unfortunately run over by a tractor, which obviously resulted in him losing a limb. As we can see here, he is clearly an amputee. Now, if you watched my video yesterday, the one that I'm linking at the end of this video, you will have a firm reminder of what I've said to you about people reporting on other people, people basically being grasses, and people making out that quite often other people's disabilities aren't as bad as they think they are, because after all of these people are living in that disabled person's body, aren't they? But this is a very sad example of how such a spiteful person, because this must have been reported to the Department of Work and Pensions, to PIP, by a very spiteful, nasty person, in my opinion. Because I think if someone is an amputee, they're going to have not only issues with things like sores, infections, other things. I should imagine the man has got all sorts of mental health issues, PTSD, etc., from that incident happening in the first place. I may be wrong. I'm just making an observation, but it appears the Department of Work and Pensions don't agree with this disabled person and have obviously sided with that one piece of information from a source. So let's look at it. So as I said, Sha lost his leg at the age of 2 and suffers with chronic pain. And in 2016, he got awarded PIP. He goes about his daily life using prosthetics, but obviously when you use prosthetics, if anyone's got no information about this, when you use them quite often, it's very uncomfortable and it's very painful and sore for several days after using it. I actually have a steel glove that I have to use for my hand following my car crash, and when I take it off, I feel like my hand has been broken all over again. So pain, etc., tiredness, fatigue, other, things that you're going to experience from medication are all relevant because they are all going to affect your day, affect your mood, affect what you can do, and affect what you can't do. But after one video surfaces of this man playing an adapted disability game of cricket. So let's just make that make sense to start with. He was playing a game of cricket where all the people playing were disabled. It is an adaptive disability game of cricket already to start with. But apparently on the evidence that DWP and PIP were presented with, it would be very interesting to know exactly what the evidence was. They decided that no, he doesn't need PIP, and no, he isn't adversely affected by his disability. So not only did they remove his PIP, they also removed his mobility car as well. A tune of 36 grand, and there's probably going to be council tax charges on that as well, and probably other things too. Now, what's really critical here is that Sean actually took this to appeal, and the tribunal agreed with DWP and not with him. So please let this be an example that just having a disability is not enough. Now, I obviously don't agree with this. I can't see how somebody who has this type of a health situation could not be adversely affected the majority of the time. You know, I'm struggling to understand that. But without all of the facts in front of me, you know, it's quite shocking. I mean, let's just leave it there. It's quite shocking. But yes, clearly having a disability this severe is not enough anymore for DWP. And when I say in 2026 they're going to be bringing in the 4-point rule, and I've had the naysayers going no, trust me, this is just the start. So it is clear, if you are in receipt of PIP or any type of disability benefit, you need to be evidencing your disability and the adversity of its effects every single day. And that is why I wrote the health journal. As you can see, this is not a teeny weeny health journal. This will make you evidence every single thing that you do every single day. Photos, doctor's reports, healthcare professionals. There are even fluctuation logs and trackers which align with the pointing of PIP and DWP. You can get it on Amazon. I will leave it down below. Had he have used this alongside his medical records, alongside diagnoses, photos, etc., and it was all laid out in a week by week format like this health journal, my health journal, forces you to do, I would think it would have been really good, consistent evidence of the adversity of the fact. So one thing I will say is that having a diagnosis is not enough when you want to prove adversity for disability. It is not. You have to prove the effects of that adversity on your daily living to qualify well for things like PIP. So how is it exactly then that years and years of medical evidence, medical proof, medical records have been outweighed by one short video of this man playing an adapted disability game of cricket? Well, this is where the government's new fraud, error and recovery, the fear bill, literally comes into its own, because this bill has introduced all sorts of things like data sharing and bank surveillance triggers. And when government and DWP and PIP systems take the information that data sharing has, it can then obviously start to generate patterns, and those patterns then start flagging up a logarithmic differences. And when you have things like that, along with social media scrutiny, it becomes, as we can see, even easier for the fear bill to literally be used to stop people's benefits and raise chilling invoices. Now just think, if one little video of him playing this adaptive disability game of cricket has triggered a £36,000 repayment, plus, I would imagine it's going to be plus, what do you think is going to happen with things like, you know, you go for a swim once, you're playing with your children, someone sees you kneeling down when you say you can't kneel down, you're doing a hobby day and then you say, you know, or you said you suffer with social anxiety. I mean, like, I think this is extracting something and making it a lot kind of bigger than what it is. And I think we can all agree that Sean's case in particular is literally the test run for what the fear bill is going to become. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of quotes that Sean actually stated in his defence anyway in the tribunal. And he did actually say that he stopped playing in 2014 this disability cricket because he just couldn't deal with the pain. His old body was breaking down, he says. All sorts of other things were happening, and basically the pain was just getting worse and worse and worse. So that was 2014. And in 2025, a video that was made available to the Department of Work and Pensions from 2023 was literally used to trigger what we now know, obviously, as the fear bill. Now, that fear bill can go back 20 years. 20 years it can go back. And this is an example of exactly what can happen if you are not documenting and keeping your own evidence. So let me go into some things I would advise you to do as a successful disability advocate myself to kind of make sure you don't get yourself backed into a corner by DWP. And don't forget, over at the Justice Journals, we have a membership, and I even have something called now the DWP Protection Kit. I mean, who would have thought we would have needed something like that? But you do. So it's there. Go and grab it if you need it. Right, the first thing you can do to protect yourself, and this is something most people do not do because they think, I've got a diagnosis and that's all I need. No, you don't. You need to be keeping a daily log of your symptoms. I'm going to keep coming back to this because I've done this to make it easy, okay? To make it easy for you and hard for certain organisations to say, no, you don't struggle with that on a day-to-day basis. No, that doesn't impact you adversely. If you're not recording your evidence on a weekly or daily basis, then you're leaving yourself wide open to organisations saying otherwise. So daily symptom login, and symptom login, by the way, is not you basically just rewriting what your symptoms are. And again, in the membership, I do go through that. There are lots of trainings that I also do lives in there as well, where you can get, extra information. You can ask me questions, etc., etc. The next one is evidence of fluctuations. So what happens when you have a flare up? What happens when you have adverse impacts of flare-ups, and how does that impact your daily life? That is very, very important too, on a scale of 1 to 10. And then afterwards, you need to be keeping things like pain and recovery records. Again, it's all there in the health channel, right? But pain and recovery records are really, really important. And I'm going to give you an example, right? Lots of you will know, a few months ago, I stepped on a plug. It actually went into my foot. I got a blood infection. I caught lymphedema. I had to go to A&E. I was very unwell. Not only could I not walk, but I had a fever that just seemed to go on for ages. And as I was in a process with the Department of Work and Pensions, where I'm suing them again for something else, the actual tribunal said no. Because you were, you were well enough in, let's just say you were well enough in October, you could have been well enough in August to respond to XYZ. Again, if obviously that is actually discriminative in itself. I'm quite shocked that a court did say that. But anyway, that is not true. That is not the case. But because I keep good records, and because I could demonstrate literally not just by my own evidence, but evidence backed up by NHS 101 calls, doctors, pictures, all sorts of other things, I could evidence not just by the day, but by the hour, how long my pain was enduring and how long it took for the recovery. I know, it's work, right? It's work. Okay, the next one is medical tracking. And medical tracking is also important for people on ESA, LCWRA, LCW, people that have been involved or are involved in employment disputes, reasonable adjustment requests, going through grievance processes with employers. So what exactly is medical tracking? This is where you have tracked and you have logged. And again, it makes it simple. All sorts of things like functional impact logs, fluctuation logs, recovery time, medical appointments, appointments that have been missed, days off work that have been missed, loss of pay, incurred expenses, like had to order things in all the time from Deliveroo or get taxis to the hospital or wherever it is, medical and treatment tracking, rebookings, assistive aids, etc., etc. The list is very extensive, but that's just a couple of examples. And again, copies of all letters and communications, right, in date order. Very, very important. You have to make these things easy. You literally have to make it so easy and so cast iron that judges and tribunals can just not say no. Okay, if you're someone that struggles with writing letters, you don't know the words to use, or you don't know how to word it in a way that's going to help put your case or your letters, for whatever reason you're writing, regarding disability and things like that, over at the Justice Journals, we have the software that I've developed called Justice Writer Pro. It's free for all of the members there, and it literally writes the letters for you after it asks you a few questions, etc., etc. So that might be helpful as well, because letters are credible, they hold impact, especially when you're asking for things like reasonable adjustments or you're disagreeing with certain things that are being levied at you. And before I go on to my next point, I'm going to clearly illustrate why this is so important. In my own case, in my own disability discrimination case, I had to report the judge who was sitting on my own case because they ignored my reasonable adjustment requests, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, but 15 times over a 20-day period leading up to a hearing. And I'm just going to point out here for anyone that's listening, and unfortunately maybe some judges need to take note as well, is that you cannot ignore reasonable adjustment requests. You're mandated by law to respond to it. So just know that. Again, having copies of all of those requests in writing, key. Absolutely key. Why in the world a judge would want to ignore such sort of correspondence on a disability case, quite frankly, it does raise the eyebrow, doesn't it, somewhat? So the final point here is a clear explanation in your own words, not ChatGPT, right? Pretending that you're a medical professional or a lawyer, right? A clear explanation in your own words of good versus bad days. And on that point, organisations like DWP, like PIP, even like HMRC, they have software that literally scans documents, scans all sorts of things like this to see whether or not it is AI generated, whether it is computer generated, because they are also analysing the language that you use in your statements. And the reason why they have to do that is because lots of people lie. And that's why I always encourage people to say it as it is. Just say it in your own words. And most judges actually just speak very normally, right? They just speak like you and me. So don't feel that you've got to try and use words that are very, that you don't really know the understanding of, that might seem a bit pompous to you or what have you. Probably are, so just don't use them. Just speak in your own way. So let me know, guys, in the comments, what do you think about Sean's case? Do you think it was fair that he had his PIP removed and his mobility car removed? Or do you think there is more to this than meets the eye? Let me know. What do you think about this? Was DWP and PIP wrong? Or what do you think about Sean? Do you think, he should have lost that money and he should have lost his entitlement more than anything to that PIP? Or do you think, no, he shouldn't have? Let me know in the comments, please, and stay respectful as well, because I have noticed some of the comments are getting a little bit wayward. Not only will I screenshot it, and do what I will need to do with it if I have to do anything with it. But you will be blocked, okay? This is the place where no one has to explain or have their disability verified. So if you start making comments about people's disabilities that are disrespectful, okay, you're just going to get blocked. Anyway, have a wonderful day. And don't forget to check out the Fear playlist so you're up to date with this new bill. Act now. And finally, this isn't just for people on benefits. I just have to keep pointing that out. This affects every single person in the UK that has a bank account. Anyway, take care, guys, and I will see you in the next one.